Hello everyone and welcome to Earp Sister Feels, episode number 3. My name is Kevin Batchelder, and along with doing these videos, I also co-host the Tales of the Black Badge podcasts with Bonnie Farrar. Appreciate you checking in to get my thoughts on some of the Earp Sister scenes in Wynonna Earp. For those who are new, I am rewatching the first 3 seasons of the show before season 4 returns, and we're looking at the Earp Sister scenes, specifically in these videos. For more general information on the show and discussions of everything in the episodes, be sure to check out the podcasts. But these are a lot of fun, and I really appreciate all the feedback I've been getting from you folks, both on Twitter and some of the video feedback that I get to include in the final released videos. I love the community aspect of this, and I really appreciate all the great feedback you folks have been sending it in, so please do keep it coming. Now, in this particular video, I'm going to be covering 2 episodes of Wynonna Earp, episode 103, Leaving on Your Mind, and also episode 104, The Blade. As I mentioned in one of the previous videos, we want to always do 1 video per episode of the show because episode 3 here doesn't have a ton of Earp Sister content, so that's why I'm putting these 2 together. But episode 4 sure makes up for it with some big stuff there. Now, what I'm doing, if this is your first time checking out one of these videos, is that you can leave me some comments that I'll include in the final released video. If you're watching this on your smartphone, there should be a button below the video that says you can record a reply. Record and send it there. You don't need a special app or anything. Just be on your smartphone and tap that button below. I leave these open for a couple of days after I post them to get some video replies, and then I complete the video, and actually now I'm posting these on YouTube to make them easier to watch on our Wynonna Earp fans YouTube channel. So what I've taken and done as well is I've created a blog post at wynonnaearpfans.com that includes links to each of these videos as well as the corresponding Twitter discussions. So in case you jump in at some point in the middle or you want to share these with someone else and want to go back to the beginning, you can find the links right there to rewatch the videos and to also jump and read the conversations and even reply yourself. Those conversations are always open. No deadline on any of that to be able to enjoy the fun there. So if you're following us on social media, or if you're not, please do, on Twitter at Earp Sister Feels. In the bio there is a link to that blog post, so you can also easily find it, or just go to the site and take a look for it there. So this makes it possible for all of us to be on the same page and be able to enjoy them. So please do take the time, check them out. I think you'll really enjoy it. All right, let's talk about episode 103, Leavin on Your Mind first. As I mentioned, not a ton of Earp Sister scenes in this particular episode. We do have one fairly early on. There at Shorty's with Waverly and Wynonna talking a little bit about Henry, as we're starting to learn more about him and what's going to be happening there. We also have the scene a little bit later at BBD, where Waverly is basically laying out the whole setup for the series. Giving Dolls the rundown of the Ghost River Triangle and the curse and the revenants and all that's there. She's so cute in doing that. We also get to see Wynonna having a donut. I mean, come on, how iconic is that for the show now? So it's fun to see her there having her donut, and also when she tries to make like the big tough one there when she wants to make sure that they all tremble with fear before me, and Dolls has to tell her she has powdered sugar on her nose. I mean, how cute is that? That's our flawed hero. So that's wonderful there. And we get a very nice high five scene when, Waverly is kind of disappointed that she didn't get more of a reaction from Dolls, but Wynonna said she done good. And then the other important Earp Sister scene is near the end of the episode after Shorty has died, and they're at Shorty's when Waverly has to tell a pretty, upset Wynonna that she's actually one of the good guys because everything that happened really took its toll on her. So again, see Waverly supporting her here, very important, and some good stuff, even if it's not a ton of content, Earp Sister-wise here in this episode. All right, let's move on now and talk about The Blade. And before I get into the Earp Sister stuff here, for me, and I think many of you, certainly based on comments and conversations I've had, this was the episode that really, for any of us that are Buffy the Vampire Slayer fans, this is where we really got some serious Buffy vibes. Not that you can't see it in the first 3 episodes of the series, but really, as far as seeing the team working together when they have to do the seance or ritual, as you want to call it, seeing them do something like that and seeing them work together, even if they're not all besties yet, certainly Doc and Dolls, but certainly taking care and supporting each other. So definitely for me, along with the very iconic phrase that Waverly's going to use near the end of the episode, the Buffy parallels vibes, they are strong in this one, certainly. So we do have near the early part of the episode at BBD, we still got Waverly trying to, convince Dolls to let her become part of the team, to tag along, to get things going there. Once things start playing out with our Revenant and he's killing people, one of them happens there, the restroom at Shorty's, and we have Wynonna and Waverly in there, not being totally forthright with Dolls in terms of what they think might be going on. And we get the wonderful scene with Wynonna just simply putting her head on Waverly's shoulder, and supporting each other, even though they're not sure what's going to go on yet. We get a really fun one there at the BBD when Dolls is interrogating Doc, and he starts to laugh, and the reaction that we get from the sisters there, they're so concerned about actually seeing Dolls laugh, they're wondering, what the heck is going on. That's good. Good way to cut the tension there. Good, stuff to see there. Brief, but a lot of fun. And then once Wynonna ends up being the one who's cursed or in the crosshairs of getting killed, when she realizes she has to beg for forgiveness from everyone, and she's telling Waverly about this and how difficult that's going to be in the time that she has, right down with Waverly being very honest and telling her, but everyone hates you, Wynonna. And as she's running out the door, just saying, I'm aware, good stuff. But then the big stuff, the really big stuff for me is, first off, we have that scene at BBD where Dolls has got the mirror and they're trying to work everything out, do that kind of ritual. That's some important stuff. We get to have fun seeing Waverly when Dolls is talking about everything that she can do, that she's learned and language she knows. And Waverly says that, yeah, I'm totally amazeballs. I mean, it's true, but it's also fun to see her at least saying it. And then when they have to go out to look for Augie, they go to technically the Big Deep Lake, but we get to have Wynonna making the wisecrack, which I admit, first time I watched it, I didn't totally catch it. I had to go back about it. Oh, hey, the name, Tiny Muddy Shit Puddle wasn't available or was taken or something. So again, I love how in this show we can cut the tension with some wonderful humor. And then when Augie gets the drop on Wynonna and he has the blade to her throat, and Waverly is obviously upset, and that's when the raw emotion starts to come out. And Waverly's talking about, why she's a bit upset and the fact that Wynonna is the chosen one. I mean, direct Buffy parallels there in terms of, who she has to forgive. And even Waverly saying, I should be the heir. And Wynonna agreeing. That's meaningful stuff as we're building this relationship in the show here. So really, really good stuff. And then when we go back to the homestead, the two of them interacting there. Woo! Chills just thinking about it. I mean, it's, to me, it's just so important. I mean, with Waverly sitting at the computer, they're still talking honestly about everything that's happened. You see Wynonna just, leaning against the wall and then sitting down and talking about it. The whole thing with the curse and who can do what and how upset Waverly was. Wynonna just swooped in and, became the heir, so to speak, and all that goes with that. Really, really good stuff. And Wynonna's saying very honestly, hey, you have a million reasons to hate me, but you still love me. And just showing why their relationship is so special. And then Wynonna still, being like any of us would be, a little hurt and saying, hey, isn't this part where you should say you love me too? Complete with Waverly topping it off beautifully with, hey, you're awful needy for a lone wolf. Again, the humor is wonderful, but boy, that is such meaningful stuff. And this is also a chance that we get to see Mel and the way she can convey emotion with her face. I mean, we had some fun stuff a little earlier with her on the gun range with Dolls. And I actually had, really enjoyed asking Melanie about that in the first interview we did on Tales of the Black Badge with her. But seeing the emotion in her face there in the scene with Waverly, wow, that's just cuts right through you. It certainly does on the rewatch. And it's beautiful, that relationship building here. So tons of good stuff there in the Blade. Meaningful stuff. I'm looking forward to getting some video comments from you folks. I'd love to include them. Again, the button below to hit a reply if you're watching this the first couple of days. Once it's on YouTube, it's locked, but you can still comment there, in text form. But love to get some thoughts, or on Twitter. If you're not a video type person, that's great too, because we got a ton of other episodes coming. So appreciate you all checking in, and I hope you all take care.
Hello. So I'm really excited about 103 and 104. I think that 103 is actually a very important Earp Sister Feels episode. Even though they don't have a lot of scenes together, it's sort of the tightening of the rope. They've kind of hit the farthest communication that the honeymoon phase can offer before they're like actually people in each other's lives. At this point, we've had Waverly being like very welcoming and very open to Wynonna's presence because she's being a good hostess. You know, there's obviously like the warmth that because they're sisters and they have the connection, and Wynonna just tries to hop right back in to being in Waverly's life, although she doesn't, but they don't know each other. They don't know each other like as people. So they sort of have a couple missteps and some awkward moments, and 103 is sort of like the culmination of all of that, and they have no communication. We have Wynonna sort of letting Waverly flounder in the meeting with Dolls, only to confront Dolls later at him being kind of an asshole to Waverly. And then we have Wynonna going to the cemetery to kind of like, you know, seek solace to Willa, which is interesting, instead of doing that to Waverly, because they don't have that relationship right now. They don't have like the vulnerability. And then we have Waverly finding out that who Doc Holliday is, and she doesn't tell Wynonna. Most likely because at this point, Wynonna has sort of been up and down on her feelings with Waverly's involvement, so Waverly just forgoes communicating with her at all. And then we have 104, where the whole theme is about forgiveness and acceptance and confession and all of that. And with everything that happened in 103, there's sort of like a lot that is set up for Waverly and Wynonna to experience together. And then you have the final like big scene in Waverly's room where they finally talk and have a real conversation, a real human conversation, not just like a topical like new relationship conversation. And I think that there's like a big, like, when Wynonna sits down and Waverly has like the upper hand in that whole, like how it's viewed is super important too. And it's just really well filmed. I have many more comments that are much more long-winded, but I will leave those to the Twitter comments. As always, Kevin, thank you so much for this. This is so fantastic, and we're like getting into the thick of it now. So excited for the next episode.
Hello, me again. I may ramble on a little bit longer this week than even past weeks because the Earp Sister Feels in episode 4, season 1, they really just came at you with a hammer. I love episode 4, and I love the Earp Sister Feels in episode 4. This is when the show, I think, really started hitting its stride and really figured out what it was about. And, you know, all the previous times, you know, the first 3 episodes, if this were a roller coaster, you were in the gatehouse, you were getting into the car, you were strapping in, but you still had the chance to escape if you really didn't want to do it. But now with episode 4, you're on that first hill up and you're committed. There's nothing you can do to turn away. You have to now know you're committed. You need to keep watching this show. That's what episode 4 was for me, and I think for a lot of people. And the Earp Sister Feels that it brought was a big part of that. And a lot of that was what Kevin mentioned, was that very really pivotal moment where Waverly was upset that she should be the heir, and Wynonna agreed. But the thing that I think is the best part about that in episode 4 was that it was completely set up in episode 3. If you go back and watch episode 3, in episode 3, Waverly has figured out who Doc Holliday is. She knows that Henry is not Henry. Henry is Doc Holliday. And she's confronting him, and she's even yelling at him and saying, "You're supposed to be Wyatt Earp's best friend." She is playing the part of the heir. She is recruiting people to be part of this solution to the curse. At the same time, in episode 3, Wynonna is off visiting the grave of her sister and her dad, saying to Willa's grave, "This is your gig, this isn't my gig." So in episode 3, it was set up that Waverly really, really, really is working on this curse, and Wynonna is kind of going, this isn't what I wanted. This isn't what I should be doing. And we come back to episode 4, and it's spelled out, and Waverly wants it and Wynonna doesn't. And the beauty of that, though, is that you go back again, to one of the themes of the show is sometimes life chooses for us. And we don't always get to decide exactly what life is going to throw at us, but we do get to decide how we react to it. And the wonderful thing about the Earp sisters is they react to it by going, we're going to love each other. We're going to, even if we're upset about what life has thrown at us, we know that we're in this together, and we know that we need to support each other. And that was the beauty of that final scene, when they knew that, yeah, this maybe wasn't what they wanted, but this is what they got, and they still have each other. And that, hits me right there in the feels. What side is my heart on? This side. I don't know. I do. It's over here. No, it's over here. Whatever. So that's the overall general, my love of episode 4. A couple other little minor things about these 2 episodes that I really loved was one is we again see protective Wynonna when in episode 4 at the beginning, when Waverly admits that Doc Holliday maybe kind of shot at her head. Wynonna goes straight after Doc Holliday and, is ready to shoot at his head. So that protective Wynonna of Waverly is in full force as well. And in the very final scene, we see a couple interesting things, that Wynonna is maybe a little more vulnerable than she lets on. We see that a little bit earlier also when they find out that, her best friend got in a car and because Wynonna was making out with her boyfriend, and Dowles confronts her and she just wants to cut him off, and he says, no, Wynonna, you were just a kid. And I think Wynonna has spent, so much of her life expecting people to be disappointed in her, and at the end, at that moment, Doc was like, no, I'm not disappointed in you. And at the end, Waverly also isn't disappointed in her. And so while Wynonna presents this very tough exterior, Waverly is accepting of her, and Wynonna is in many ways a very vulnerable character, which I also think is wonderful for the show. And then the last thing I'll say is this is the first time as a Way Hot shipper, I have noticed that, Waverly, I won't say refused, though I almost did, but she was a little reticent about saying I love you to Nicole. And this traces all the way back, though, to this scene here in episode 4, where Wynonna was saying, hey, this is where you say I love you. And Waverly didn't. And so I think in this scene and in this episode, we see some real emotional chinks in the armor of both Wynonna and both Waverly, but that they're both there for each other and recognize those deficits in each other and still accept each other and love each other. Yeah, I just went on and on and on about this episode because I think it's it's a watershed episode, and it's really when things started to take off on the show. All right, that's it.
Okay, so episodes 103 and 104. Like Kevin said, there's not a whole lot in 103, but we do get so many cute, heartfelt scenes or comedic exchanges, and Waverly is so freaking adorable when she's going over all of her research at BBD, and you kind of see them all working together for the first time, and I feel like the exchanges within that room, we get the little bit of Way Hot, but then also just the Earp sister exchanges when Dolls and Doc are talking, and throughout that episode there's just so much that is pretty funny but also heartfelt. And towards the end, when Waverly tells Wynonna she's one of the good guys, my heart literally just melts. Like, I think that it's such a small scene, but it's so important because it just shows you that regardless of how other people are viewing Wynonna or how Wynonna even views herself, like, Waverly thinks so highly of her. And that's part of that sister relationship. But another scene, like, going into 104, when Wynonna rests her head on Waverly for a minute, that's just so cute to me as well. But the biggest scene between the two episodes is definitely the end of 104. I feel like regardless of Way Hot and those exchanges, like, I knew that relationship would be endgame, but the sister relationship at the end of 104, I knew that this was going to be the most important relationship to me on the show, no matter what happened. Like, it was a lot. When they're at the lake, and this is the first time that I feel like we see Waverly being really vulnerable, especially with her sister, and honestly, like, letting her know how she feels. And even though it doesn't and won't ever change how much they love each other, that resentment that Waverly was holding on to was building up, and it can be such a barrier in them becoming closer or really getting to know each other. And that the convo and the scenes that they have there, just, even though it doesn't really solve it, like, it still brings them so much closer. And I think that that's so common with sister relationships, resenting one another. And most of the times it's for things that, like, the other can't even control, but it's just there with that sister relationship. There's always, like, a little bit of that competitiveness, but that bond and that love isn't ever going to go away. And when Waverly tells her, "You're my sister, I'll always forgive you," that for me was like tears rolling down my face. Like, I could not stop. Like, that line was like the most important to me of the episode, and I just lost it. So my sister didn't start watching Wynonna or catch up on it until season 3 was over. But there would be scenes that I would text her afterwards. She didn't necessarily know I was watching Wynonna Earp, but that I would text her and tell her I love her. Because just so much of the show would remind me of my relationship with her. And this scene was actually the very first scene that I did that. And then when they go into the conversation in Waverly's room, and they've got the bubblegum sake, and not only was this, like, such a very important Earp Sisters scene to me, but Melanie Scrofano and her acting, and just, like, her timing of, like, a comedic line that she can say so straightforward, but also, if Melanie cries, I can't. I am immediately crying, but also any exchange with her and Waverly just hits me so hard. And 104 was that big scene that I felt like this was it. Earp Sisters are very important to me. .tumblr.com